Dr. Fitzroy, Graham.
So studies have shown that sleep can directly affect the amount of years
that we live. Our mortality, the rate of mortality is highest in people who have poor sleep. And that being the case, then what can we do to improve our quality of sleep? Well, let's look at a sleep routine, a healthy sleep hygiene that will help us to improve our quality of sleep. Let's start out. Remember, we mentioned that to prepare for sleep, we have to start from in the day before that night. And so we begin by making sure that we get good sunlight. Sunlight is known to affect directly our sleep experience later on. We also get physical activity. At least every hour we should get up and start moving. Also, we want to make sure we spoke of our nutrition to make sure that our higher carbohydrate intake occurs earlier on in the day, especially if we can make our breakfast the largest meal for the day. And when it gets to the afternoon, no later than 6 o'clock, we should have our meals. And we should stay away from snacking after that last meal. So that's nutrition. And then we want to mention specifically that there are certain substances in our body specifically affect our drive to sleep. And one of these is called adenosine. And this chemical forces a surge of hormones. And it gets to a point, a peak point, when it explodes at night. And guess what we do? Oh, I want to sleep. That specific chemical, adenosine, can be blocked by caffeine. And so we need to get a buildup of adenosine throughout the day to have the explosive tiredness that we need to fall asleep. But if we use caffeine, it blocks the receptors of the adenosine. And then we want to look at light. We mentioned daylight. We want to have a lot of sunlight, but then as the night goes on, we want to reduce the amount of light, especially the blue light that's found in our computers and our laptops in the background. The last thing we want to do at night is actually look at a phone before we go to bed, because then that blue light will turn off the production of melatonin, which we spoke of as necessary for us to maintain good sleep and initiation of sleep. The other thing is we want to make sure we try to slow down our activities. And one of the things that we have to do before we go to bed at night is we have to make sure we try to always keep the noise down, because noise can affect, especially the phone. We found that sleep disorders in young people nowadays are on the rise because of the continually texting throughout the night or vibration of the phone or the different sounds that these phones make. And basically, we're not really sleeping. The other thing is we want to make sure our place of sleep be the same place each night. So we don't want to be sleeping in different rooms, etc. We want to stay in one place, and that will help us to have the same rhythm of sleep that we need to have, because it's all about a biological rhythm. Remember that temperature can directly affect your sleep. The other thing that we want to be aware of is our fluid status. What does that mean? That we're not having very salty things before we go to bed, because then that pulls water from our blood system. So we need to make sure we're drinking lots of water, not so that we can stay up at night, but from midday onwards up till about 5, we want to be drinking water. We want to make sure that we are not taking a lot of salty foods at that time. Sleep and immunity. So we know that sleep directly affects our immune function. And so sleep has been found by many researchers to either suppress or enhance our production of T and B cells and our white blood cells. People who are deficient in sleep seem to have twice as many viral infections than people who are sleeping well. And this is very specific because we have basically classified our immune system into an innate response and an adaptive response. What does that mean? The innate response occurs in hours, and the The adaptive one takes a while to adapt, and that's what we call the adaptive one. An adaptive one is where we have T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes. And you know, we've heard about these viral infections like HIV and COVID-19. Well, the T cells are specifically involved in killing these cells. And sleep-deprived people have very low function in their production of certain chemicals which come from these cells, which are used to destroy these viruses. And there's a lot of evidence that shows that people who have short-term sleep problems, they will probably have a better outcome when it comes to viral infections than people who have chronic sleep problems. After a night of sleep-deprived state, we have found that people actually lose their natural killer cell powers. What does that mean? The ability to destroy viruses. But when we give them sleep to repair their body, we find that the function of their NK cells, which are the natural killer cells, they revert back to normal baseline function and they're able to kill viruses. Well, what does that mean then? That means that it's so important for us to have sleep so that we can actually have a healthy immune system and we can fight bacterial and viral infections and even inflammatory and cancerous disorders.